I think it would be great to just have it like a conversation also. I think that's what people prefer more, right, than
Sure.
interview style or anything. So we can all
That would,
just talk
mhm.
and give each other enough time to speak about, certain
Absolutely.
topics.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, so I think we are. Let's confirm that we are live. Um, could somebody confirm that on their phone if we are live on this? And then we can get started.
I'm sure we are.
We are
It's
live.
We are.
I see it.
Yay. Hello, everybody. I'm Nadia, and I'm honored to be here along with Emily Williams, with Irina, and Maria Malik. This is a very special day for all of us to celebrate the Women's International Day. So we wanted to kind of um, put a small talk event together so we can share our experiences and celebrate and empower women across the globe. So yeah, take it away. Maria, you wanna introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. This is Maria Malik. I am a corporate public speaking coach, and I help professionals overcome their fear of public speaking. And I also help them get better at impromptu speaking. I've been doing this for about 2 years now. Absolutely love it. I was part of the corporate world for a little while, and it's been a crazy roller coaster ride for me, but I'm loving every moment of it.
Awesome. Irina or
Yes, sure. First of all, it's amazing to be with you, ladies. Happy Women's Day. I'm so glad to know you all. And I'm Irina. I'm a life coach, full-time life coach from last year. I help ladies and gentlemen to define their purpose in life, to find clarity, set goals, and achieve them. So it's pretty much what I do. And it's great to see people succeed. It's like really good feeling to help them out.
awesome. Emily?
Great, thank you. Yeah, I also am very happy to be here for this important conversation. Thank you so much, Nadia. My name is Emily Williams. I coach women of color to overcome microaggressions and experience psychological safety at work.
That is awesome. And I'm Nadia Boutaoui, and I'm a scientist, innovator, and turned entrepreneur. I help healthcare tech companies move their innovations, expand their innovations to new markets. So I'm so happy to be here. Before we start, I would love to know where the audience are watching us live or on a recorded session. So you can type in live if you're watching live.
Yes, and I'd love to know where everyone is tuning in from. That's always nice to know. It's just so crazy to me that we can connect with people from all over the world. Like, how insane is that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always get a thrill to see people from across the globe. It's a very small village because of technology. So yeah, we wanted to kind of touch base on share with you guys at least part of our journey, its ups and downs, and hopefully motivate you to dream bigger and challenge yourself and pursue your dreams regardless of the obstacles you face. So yeah, I'm curious, like Arena, what made what empowered you to move like away from corporate world to pursue life coaching?
Well, it was actually very connected to what I did for like the last 5 years. As a manager of the team, I've been coaching them and mentoring staff, and I realized that I really love that part. And so I've made a conscious decision to, take up some courses, do more learning and development, and try to shift my career in my 40s. Yeah. Because I really love, to help people succeed. It's like, um, it's a great feeling. And what actually made me think that I'm good at it, it's a feedback I've got from people, right? The feedback from the team that I've received. That's what helped me to really
Yeah.
make myself move forward, right? Because you have to motivate yourself to move forward. You
Mhm.
can dream about it, but actually getting to do it, it's a different story. So yeah, last year was kind of a defining year on that path, and
That's awesome.
it's great to do that full time.
It's very special when you find that, like, what you're very good at, what you're passionate about, and then you make it your career. It's like you hit the jackpot.
Yeah, you have to keep hitting the stuff and do the stuff. It doesn't just happen. It's not really a jackpot.
Exactly. Yeah.
Work in progress.
That's good. That's awesome. Yeah, consistency is key for sure. Maria?
Yes. Well, for me, I was in the corporate world for 10 years. And when I started working at Stanford University, I thought, this is it. This is my job, my dream like company, organization. And I was so happy when I got a job there because this is literally like everything I wanted to do. I was doing it for a while. It was good. It was great. But I still didn't feel fulfilled. And if any of you guys know anything about like introverts, and some people, that's just how they operate. Like if you're not helping someone and if you're not doing something extraordinary, like I'm not happy until I can do that. And I know it sounds very like cheesy to some people, and I understand, but that's literally how I operate, right? So even though I had that job and I was very happy there, I still felt like, no, something's missing. I was like, no, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. I just knew there was something missing. So I started kind of exploring, like, what are some things that I'm good at? What are some things I can teach people? So back in 2020, right before the pandemic, surprisingly, January 2020, I was like, this is it. I'm going to start my own business. I had no idea what I was going to do, by the way, no clue. I just went all in. And it kind of worked out because my husband had gotten a new job. So he was like, we should move. This is a great opportunity. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go all in. I quit my job at Stanford. I was terrified because I had never been without a job for over like 10, 15 years. And once I let go and just embraced the fact that, okay, I know I can do this. I can figure this out. It's just been a crazy few years for me. And the things I have accomplished, like, I'm mind blown. And I think it's also just because the world has changed so much. There are so many opportunities online. And a lot of us are always stuck in that bubble. And we think you have to go to school. You have to do this. You have to get a job to be successful, right? There are so many other avenues that we just don't know about. And I have no one in my life, personally, that I know that's become an entrepreneur or has started a business or done anything crazy. So everyone around me thought I was crazy. And anytime I would tell people what I'm doing, they would be like, oh, okay. And like, they just looked at me like I was insane, right? But I just kept going. I was like, no, I'm going to figure it out. My husband believed in me. He's like, go for it. Take all the time you need. And it was mistake after mistake after mistake until finally it clicked. And I started this business of public speaking where I'm helping people be better at just speaking more confidently. And I'm so happy to say that now I'm at a place where I'm like, this is what I was born to do, to help people with this.
That is awesome.
That feeling gets me up at 6 a.m. I'm the type of person, I used to wake up at like, the last minute just to get ready and go to work. I'm up so early because I enjoy it. And I think if you can find something like that in your life that you enjoy and that makes you want to get up early, like, you're winning in life then.
Yeah, that's awesome. Emily,
makes a difference.
That is awesome, Maria. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So, my story is a little bit different. I actually had a very fulfilling career in my 9-to-5 before I went into entrepreneurship. I worked with women around the world to take action against and write policy to prevent violence and harassment in the world of work. And in that process, I realized the extent to which women are harmed by inequities at work, right? So the way that we're treated at work, it impacts our economic standing, our access to healthcare, our ability to be independent, or whether we have to depend on someone else for our livelihood. And in short, I really realized that the extent to which we're treated fairly at work, or if we're not treated fairly at work, that can make us very vulnerable in society. So that's what drives me. I really want to live in a world where women and girls are safe and healthy. And so that's why I do what I do. And I think too, a huge part of the work that I do is raising awareness about the impact of the harm that can be created in a traditional 9 to 5, right?
That's awesome. Yeah, for me, it's like I pursued like my education all the way, the traditional path, like all the way to a PhD. I've been through a few continents so far. I crossed multiple seas, and and then I got to a point. I directed the genetics lab for close to 10 years. By all metrics, it was a very successful lab where you get grants, you get publications in high impact journals. What my big why is seeing those discoveries making it to the people that really need those technologies. So I was curious about um, in asthma for me, despite being in the top notch, working with top world class pulmonologists, top notch hospital, one of the top 10 in the US, yet two of my kids had allergic asthma, and I saw firsthand the lack of drugs to treat the disease, this complex disease. So I was curious, what is the bottleneck? Why aren't they enough drugs? So that got me into looking into the preclinical stage before you even get to the human clinical trials. And that's where we thought there is some room for improvements. And I created NanoNurse to work on tools to improve preclinical testing so we can increase the chance of success in clinical trials. So by all means, it was like the traditional path for research, then my curiosity about the translation, what's called translation research, I followed that gut feeling that I need something that my kid can use. And it's very siloed when it comes to academia slash industry or pharmaceutical industry. So I'm trying to bridge that gap by moving technologies closer to market, or in some cases, the technologies are still already on the market to expand to new markets so they can help more people. So that's what drives me day in and day out. It's complex, it's slow. At times, it's can be frustrating, but when you love what you do, you keep going because you know your purpose. And when you find that purpose, it's a game changer. Yeah,
Amen.
it's almost like puzzles,
Agreed.
like being like it's almost as Steve Jobs puts it, it's puzzle pieces that you believe that they're gonna fall into place sometime in the future, and when they start clicking and falling into place, it's a beautiful thing.
It really is.
Yeah.
That's
But
awesome. So yeah, through your career, ladies, was there any like advice that you stood out to you through your either transition to entrepreneurship or before then that you would like to share?
I have one, and I'm
Sure.
a very DIY type of person. I do everything myself. I'm just like, I always think I just don't have time. Even my nails, I'll do at home myself. So when it comes to doing everything, I just do everything on my own. And I think it took me a long time to realize that there are some things I'm just not good at, right? And I need help. And I think the biggest lesson that I've learned just in the past few years is to get help. Hire a mentor, find someone that's done what you want to do, and hire them and work with them, because it's just going to save you the time, the energy. And ever since I started letting go a little bit and trusting other people to teach me things, I've just seen so much more results. So for
That's
me, this
awesome.
has been the biggest lesson that I've learned in the past few years, that it's okay. You can't do everything on your own. Sometimes you have to get help, hire a mentor, there's so many other people you can hire, like an agency or someone to help you achieve your goals. It's so hard to do it on your own, right? We're just not built like that. If you can get help, get the help.
That's very similar to the best advice I got is that asking for help is not a weakness. It's actually when you're aware of your strength and your weaknesses, and then find whoever complements your weaknesses, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a partner, whether it's a business partner, it's key. So I think asking for help, on the contrary, is a strength.
Yeah, and I can say that the best advice that I've ever received in my career, and I've worked in spaces, around social impact, social justice, social change, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the best advice that I have received is to be the change that you want to see in the world. And sometimes, especially as women, it can be really easy to underestimate our power to actually improve our circumstances and the world around us. And absolutely, the times that I have felt most empowered in my career and in my life were the times that I took action on my own behalf and on the behalves of others who are experiencing similar challenges. And so I think that that still is really good advice to live by. And I think especially as we see so much change, in the world of work, that we really do have to embody the change. And then that gives others an example that sets a standard, right, of what's acceptable or what the ideal is and that it's possible to attain it. And I think especially on this International Women's Day, it's really important that we, continue to create a world where all women can thrive.
That's awesome.
Actually, that's very similar to what I wanted to say too. Like for me, not to be afraid to be initiative maker, right? Not to wait for somebody else to take initiative, to bring some change or even to help or do something, right? Like don't think somebody else has to start it. You can start it. That's an advice because, sometimes when you start in the workplace, you're kind of timid and you don't want to give your opinion. You don't know how it's going to be received. But I was suggested one time not to be afraid to say what you think because your initiative and, what you think is matters. And many people might be thinking the same way, but don't want to say it. So don't be afraid to speak up and take initiative, which is very relatable to what you're saying, Emily, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that's awesome. So yeah, I always try to start on the positive thing, and then perhaps some of this already covered. But are you willing to share some mistakes and what you learned from them? So if we are at one chapter ahead of somebody else, if you can help someone, we've already made a difference.
Well, I can say that what I've learned, the biggest mistake I had is not to have boundaries. Not to have boundaries at work and even in personal relationships, and to let people take advantage sometimes, right? Being kind and and helpful is one thing, but being taken advantage of is another thing. So having this line drawn in the sand that there is boundaries, it's very important, especially in the workplace, right? Boundaries was my lesson.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And one mistake that I made in my career as someone who worked in a 9-to-5 was just not trusting myself soon enough. So I was in a harmful working environment for multiple years, and I would go to the places in the workplace that should have been there to support employees like me. HR, sometimes a union, organizational leaders, and I was gaslit, right? And otherwise, got an unsupportive response. And that really kept me in a place of still experiencing the harm. But, when I started acting on what I knew to be true, that's when I started seeing positive change, right? And so I think that that's, what I would encourage others to learn from my mistake, and especially women of color at work. If something doesn't feel right, it's not right. And trust yourself, act on that, and then keep moving from there, from that place.
That's awesome.
I love that, Emily. Like trusting your gut, it's such a big thing. I'm a big believer on energy, and energy doesn't lie. If you have that gut feeling, if you're feeling a certain way, there's a reason why. Just listen to it. But I do want to take a different approach to this, where I am the type of person, I'm so persistent. I keep trying until it works, right? And I think these mistakes that we make, they make us so much better, right? We learn so much from them. So I think it's great that we make mistakes because now we know what not to do or how to
Mhm.
avoid it next time, right? And I think it's just part of your growth. So
Yeah.
it's okay to make those mistakes just as long as you're learning from them, analyzing them, and realize, okay, this is where I went wrong, or this is where someone else went wrong. This is how I'm going to move forward and make sure it doesn't happen again. So I think mistakes are just part of your growth, and it's okay to admit to them as well. But I've made a ton of mistakes. I have like a list of them. It's going to take me like hours getting through. So, but
Yeah, for me, along the lines of mistakes early on, especially early on in my career, I was afraid to make mistakes because I was like a straight A student, like since like first grade through all of my education. So, but I learned that actually mistakes they teach us a lot, and since then, I purposefully learn through mistakes and failing fast. So, because actually, with my kids, when they come back from school, I ask them every day, what mistake did you make today? How did it feel? Because we need to normalize like that mistakes are part of learning, both in education and it starts early on because what do we reward? We will reward the straight A's but not whether you failed at something, you learned from it and you got better. So even the reward system kind of encourages that it's not okay to make mistakes. But I learned that you can have all the theoretical things in life, learn whatever, but you will learn 10 times faster by doing things and learning from them. And it's just part, there's no failure. It's either you win or you learn. So
absolutely.
that's awesome. Yeah. So talking about like, learning and productivity and what we do on a daily basis, do you have like, what's in your toolkit for your daily, like top 2 or 3 tools you use on a regular basis?
I'm going to go first on this one because I think I have a lot to learn from you ladies about this because I think I'm pretty old school when it comes to productivity and organization. I mean, I really love a good old fashioned list of tasks. And what helps me organize them is really time chunking. So, I set an alarm for 20 minutes throughout my day so that I can measure how much I got done, how much I need to, complete, or how much left I have to do before the task is complete. And that has really worked for me. I can find, I like to plan my day, the night in advance. And if I don't, I can definitely see a difference in my productivity, right? When I don't plan my day, that's when I'm like, just excited about all the big things that I could do, right? As opposed to the smaller tasks that I need to get done in order to get ahead. So I'm super old school when it comes to productivity and time management. It's a good old fashioned list that I write, check off, and then I use my timer and I set it for 20-minute increments.
Awesome.
I love that. I actually have something, and Emily, you've reminded me of this. I'm going to show you guys. I'm a type of person that I get distracted so easily. I'll sit down and I'm like, okay, I have half an hour. I better get this done. And then I find something else to do, and then I never get anything done. So this is this little cube thing, right? It's a timer. I don't know if you guys have seen these, but basically, let's say I want to give myself 20 minutes. I turn it on. I just place it like that, and then it puts on a timer for 20 minutes. And then after 20 minutes, it just like beeps. So this helps me because now I know I'm on a timer. It's going to beep, so I better get it done. And I swear to God, this has helped me so much just to stay on track. I have very few things that I use for productivity, but this one's like on top of my list. It's literally like it's on Amazon. It was only like I think $10 or something, but life changing. So this is kind of my little secret. So if you're someone that just can't concentrate like me, just because you're all over the place and you have so many things to do, then yeah, definitely get one of these guys. Very helpful.
That's great.
That's cool. That's very cool. I really structure my day by priorities. That's my take. That's how I function better. I know in the evening what's my must to do, and that's what I try to do the first thing. And once the must to do's are done, well, 2-3 things that has to be done, then I look at priorities down the list, and I definitely always have like a meditation time. Sometimes not in the morning, it depends, but I do have it daily. So that's one of the priorities too. But work-wise and business-wise and, calls and all that, I try to schedule by importance. But it's not as rigid, ladies, as you are. Like, yeah, I'm more flexible on that. I don't strictly time myself. It's just priorities. If there are two things I have to do, that's the first thing you do, and then the
Awesome.
day goes and flows like that. So I'm
Yeah.
more flowy.
For me,
Well-
it's like a mix of two. Go ahead,
Oh.
Emily. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to add in that part about mindfulness. I mean, I can also see a difference if I've like fallen off my meditation practice. My focus
Mhm.
is off, my morale often is off. And so,
Yeah.
Irina, you just make a really great point with the meditation. And that's also something that I commit to doing daily. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, I'm a big planner too. I combine both like old school and new school. So I have my pink planner for 2022. And I found that Sunday afternoon, like when I'm having a coffee, somewhat relaxing. That's when I plan the week.
Yeah.
And it kind of gives me like the big picture. What are, my goals for the week? For me, I get distracted a lot, not by technology, but by kids. I have 4 of them. And I need to do a brain dump. That is like the night before when they're already in bed. I write down like 3 things that are a must do in the morning that needs to be done. I'm not into the timing part, but it's more like result. I measure the results rather than the time. And that helps a lot. I also have like medium term. I like to zoom to see the big picture. So I have like a 6 month like goal, and then I can break them down to the one day. But within the day, it's more like what are the top 3 that get done needs to be done. My other rule is that if it takes less than 5 minutes, get it done. So because it takes more space in your brain than the actual amount of work. So those tasks that don't need too much attention, I give them like a 1 hour and I get them all out. So
I
that
like that.
helps free up a lot of space
Mental
in my
space.
brain. Mental space. Yeah, exactly.
I just remembered something in regards to the LinkedIn and the messaging and the groups. We all have groups we belong to and all that.
Yeah.
I find, well, recently, because my life got a little bit more complicated with all the calls for overseas, I try to just give a chunk of time to that, like maybe an hour a day, and then I try not to look at it, because you just look at it and 20 minutes is gone, and I don't have a timer. So yeah, like giving like in either morning for all the comments and that, or either evening, and then try to do what I need to do to limit that.
That's a really great point. I do the same. I try to do it after everything else of the day is done, so that I can give my full attention to it and not sort of be concerned about the other things that I have to do for the day. And then also so that doesn't run into the rest of my day.
The rest of your day. That's great. Those are great tips. Yeah, if we could like touch on some challenges that women face, we probably touched on that a little bit, Emily. So yeah, can you talk to us about the main challenges you see as a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert in the workplace?
Yeah, absolutely. And I approach this conversation from the perspective of women of color. And I think, unfortunately, it's a disappointing picture, right? In 2020, in the wake of the incident of George Floyd and other, killings of Black people by police, we saw a lot of companies make statements, sort of renew their commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And now that we're 2 years later, we haven't seen that much change. For example, microaggressions are no better for women of color than they were in 2019, right? That means that still on a daily basis, women of color are being put down. They're hearing negative stereotypes about people of their races, ethnicities, genders. There still are huge disparities in pay. And women of color are not being promoted, right, at the same rate as white women or at the same rate as men. So while we have all of that happening, at the same time that we had these kind of very outward-looking statements about increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion in companies, there still is a serious lack of support, right? So 3/4 of white employees see themselves as allies to women of color, but less than half of them have actually taken the basic allyship actions, such as naming bias in the workplace or advocating for women of color to have new opportunities at work. And so the combination can really result in isolation and then stagnation for women of color. So, that's why it's really important for women of color to surround themselves with community, with other women who have been there, who can say, listen, like, you still have it, right? Maybe no one is singing your praises at work, but that doesn't mean that your praises don't deserve to be sang, right? And so, also we see that the state of things within corporate America, within traditional workplaces, are really pushing women of color into entrepreneurship, right? Because this is what I was mentioning earlier about the harm and the toxicity, right? Microaggressions begin to chip away, right? They begin to chip away at your confidence. They begin to chip away at your mental health, because as opposed to sort of focusing on your work responsibilities, deriving a sense of satisfaction from that, one is concerned about, well, how do I prevent a harmful statement from being made while I'm giving this presentation, right? Even though I've submitted great work, what can I do this time to prevent a really harsh response from my supervisor, right? So those things begin to take over. And we really do need strategies to combat that kind of harm in the workplace, right? And
Awesome. That's
that
great.
is,
Yeah. And if you want to be part of the community, I put there the Forward Global community that Emily Williams helps women of color to thrive in the workplace. So,
I wanted also to mention that there is some problem exists into the immigrants world, right? Like I'm an immigrant.
Me too.
I'm not sure about you or Emily, but I know Nadia is as well. And there is a bias toward immigrant women as well, right? It's harder to start with a higher position. It's harder to get a higher pay because you don't have specific experience in the country you just arrived to. That's really hard for new arrivals, for new immigrants, even if they have 20 years experience, right?
Yeah.
You don't know how it works here. If it's economics specific, maybe, but doesn't apply to every industry, right? So that thing exists too, unfortunately. And there is still a lot of things that exist, and we have a lot of work ahead of us. Emily, you have a lot of work.
I'm ready for it.
We're here to support you.
Yeah, I think in terms of, I can comment on the research, like the industry of the research, like I mean the higher education research. A lot of postdocs, and I would say 80% of postdoctoral researchers are foreign graduates, or at least, even if they did their PhD or their graduate degree here, they're still from a different country. And I myself had like a hard time adjusting the cultural difference that when you mentioned that your experiences are different, and it kind of hinders your advancement in a way. And I think when it comes to the diversity component, we should look at that as enriching rather than hindering the progress, whether it's within academic research institution or in a company setting, because chances are your customers are diverse, and you need to have what they call in statistics sort of representation samples that represent your target population that you want to serve. So it makes sense to have them not use that as a a check mark that you have a diverse, workforce, but to give them opportunities to perform at their best and to treat them equal and to give them advancement opportunities similar to the dominant group. So
absolutely. And I mean, Nadia, what I think you're pointing to is like the business case for diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Diverse teams perform better. They come up with more creative solutions to problems, and they do so quicker than, heterogeneous teams, right? So, I mean, I think many of us, I think especially the three of us, we have personal experiences with what it's like to be in spaces where there is a lack of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah,
so there's also a moral case that we can make, right? Because it's also our personal experience. But what we're seeing now is that the business case is getting so much more traction than the moral case, right? Which, I think at the end result, if people are fairly included and we really do have equitable, safe, healthy workplaces, I think we all win, right?
And it eats into the profits of businesses, because chances are you're going to have more turnaround and less retention. And we all know if you get a new workforce, you need to train them. And by the time they get to their productivity peak, it's going to take a few months at best. So it makes business sense to not only recruit for diversity, to train and retain talent.
Absolutely.
And recently McKinsey, they did like a report about what are the key strategic areas for future leaders, and recruitment and talent retention is one of the top 5. And we've seen that, especially in that what's called the Great Resignation, that people need more than a paycheck.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. So if we were to share some of the tips for women out there so they can do the best they can and to get them closer to their dreams, let's start with goal setting. Irina, you want to take the lead on that one as a life coach and goal setting expert?
Yeah, sure. Sure. Like, you are good at that because you just described your day, which is precisely what I would say to do. Remember when you were talking about breaking down and you have 6 months and a daily goals and all that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't like to repeat the same things over. Like, we all know about smart goals, right? To have something that you can measure, you take action. And the main point is nothing will happen if you don't take action. Writing things down and thinking about them are not going to make it happen. But we need to work on our confidence as women in workplace or in business, our self-confidence, right? To build that self-confidence so we can go after the goals we want and to structure our priorities the right way. And I was just one of the ladies that I commented recently on her post was about mompreneurs and how ladies feel guilty about doing that, especially when you have multiple children, Nadia, right? You might encounter those guilt trips sometimes because you put more your time. So setting priorities right, having balance between your family and the business or the career. And it matters what Emily does, that we get supported in those workplaces, right? Because we can have all the best goals for our career, but if we're not supported at work, it's going to be very hard.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that is true.
Absolutely.
For me, like having going back to like boundaries, and I found that learning to say no is a big one. I learned, it took me a long time to realize that if it's not a strong yes, it's a no. And I'm okay with saying no. I say a lot of no's nowadays, but especially for women, we want to please, like that, wanting to please everybody because it's in our nature as
to make
nurturers.
everybody happy, to nurture them, right?
Exactly. And we confuse that, sometimes saying no, it's the right way to go because you need to protect your positive energy, you need to protect your time so you can best serve what you're supposed to serve, like to whether it's your family, whether it's towards your goal or your business and what have you. So saying no for me is a big one.
Yeah. Thanks for that one, Nadia. That's something I need to do more of, is say no. And one of the traps that I fall into, and that I know a lot of the women who I coach fall into also, is that, we want to help out, we want to make positive change, and we know that we can contribute something. And so we do because we care, right? And so it's also important that we give that same care to ourselves and say, okay, well, I deserve downtime, right? Or I deserve leisure time, right? Or maybe there's another way I can support this cause. I think one actionable step to thrive, especially for women of color who are still in traditional workplaces, is to name the bias, right? We can't break down what we don't know exists, right? Or is not, there's not an awareness that it's there, right? So I would say name the bias in the workplace, and then also hold leadership accountable for eliminating it, right? We had such great demonstrations, and we still do with the Great Resignation, of employees taking action and saying, listen, we want more from our workplace. We want more from our companies, right? And leadership responded, right? And so we have to keep using those same kinds of strategies. And then I would also say, for people who want to support women, people who want to support women of color in the workplace, advocate for women of color to receive an opportunity that can definitely advance her career. Okay, that vocal and ongoing advocacy definitely can help and make a difference. So definitely engage in it.
Awesome. Maria, you want to add some, like speaking up and advocating for yourself as the public speaking expert?
I was just waiting. I was like, oh my gosh, Emily, I love everything that you just said right now, especially about using your voice, right? That's what I'm an advocate for. A lot of us, we're afraid. We're afraid to speak up, or we think our opinions don't matter. We think our thoughts are not important, and we just take a back seat, right? And I think that's very common amongst women, right? We try to just get by. We're like, okay, if I just stay quiet and get through, everything will be okay. We're so afraid to shake things up. We're so afraid to rock the boat. And I'm completely against that. And I think we need to start rocking the boat. And I think we need to start saying things, even if it's going to scare people, or even if it's going to scare ourselves, right? Your voice is the most powerful tool you have. You can't get what you want until you use it, right? And you can't help other people until you use it. So start using your voice, right? It doesn't matter how small or big your thought is. It doesn't matter. Just use it. You're not going to know until you actually speak up. Right. So I love what you just said. And, it's great to speak up for other people. If you are someone that can speak up and you see someone else that's maybe shy or, a little bit more timid, speak up for them, right? Whether it's people of color, it could even be another man, right? Men are sometimes very shy, quiet, and they are afraid to say what they need to. If you have that voice, if you're strong enough, use it for other people too.
Yeah, to follow up, Maria, do you guys have any tips about like women negotiating in the workplace? We know that a lot of women, they don't negotiate their salaries, or whether it's boundaries. It doesn't have to be monetary negotiation. It could be, having certain boundaries to protect their mental health. Or how do you go about that? Any tips for that?
I have something for that. And just because I've been working with a lot of women that come to me because they're afraid to ask for that salary increase, or they're going to interviews and whatever salary they're given, they'll just take without going back. And I think we all know there's always room for, that little pushback and say, hey, no, I want this instead. And I think at the end of the day, it's a confidence issue, right? A lot of people, they're just not confident in themselves. They just don't believe in themselves. And I think the second you start believing in yourself, everything changes. Right. And it's hard. It's not easy. You can't just wake up one day and start believing in yourself. Right. It's a process. It's a lot of internal work. But once you do that internal work and you feel confidence in yourself and your abilities, you're going to be unstoppable. So that's kind of my tip. Believe in yourself. And it's gonna take you a long way.
Yeah. And confidence is about practice. A lot of the people think, oh, you're born with it. It's practice. You practice a lot. And then you make it look so easy.
Yes.
Because you put in the work into it.
Exactly. Put in the work. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, sorry. I wanted to say that also because women are less confrontational, we just don't want to argue and push back because, oh, it might be a confrontation and who knows what it's going to be. We just don't like confrontation in general. Men are more straightforward and confrontational kind of thing. They will demand their salary, all their time off. And the woman will say, okay, maybe I'll be flexible, even more flexible. I'll bend over and do this and that. And that's why we struggle in corporate world, in workplaces. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And in
And
terms of, yeah, go ahead, Emily.
Well, and I think a little bit differently about the negotiation piece too. I think that I think the employer also has a responsibility here. I think transparency about pay scale and pay history is really important. Also, I mean, bias exists in the negotiating process as well, right? Which is why it exists there too. So even particularly when women of color do negotiate their salary or ask for more money, oftentimes they can experience negative repercussions as a result, right? So we're still, in this place where there's bias on the other end, right? Which expects women to be quiet, to be satisfied with what they had, to be grateful for the offer to begin with, right? So I really do think it's both and, right? I am 100% behind women of color, like standing up and saying, hey, this is my value. This is what I'm going to bring to the workplace. So compensate me accordingly. I'm 100% for that. I'm also for employers being more transparent and more forthcoming about the salaries that they can pay, what they have paid others, and also employers holding themselves accountable for pay equity, right? So I think that's an important thing to just keep in mind in this conversation about negotiations. Additionally, I would encourage women to get support in the negotiation process, right? Because it's not always as straightforward as just asking for more, right?
Yeah.
It can be quite complex. But then also when we learn the skills for negotiation, that can serve us in every other area of our life. So
That's great. I've always found it like, how do you balance like being like threading the line by being assertive and not being seen as too aggressive, like, because when you're like advocating for yourself or another person, another woman in the workplace, regardless of what their color or what have you, how do you balance that out in terms of still being persistent towards that you're deserving for the next promotion, as either a woman or a minority woman? Is there any tips that you kind of use from a communication standpoint or planning or
Yeah, I have something if you guys don't mind.
Sure.
So for me, I teach this in my program as well, right? The biggest thing is your tonality, right? The way that you say it. So tonality and words, right? Obviously the words that you use. I think a lot of times women say, oh, if you don't mind, or if I can say, or if, right? First of all, we have to stop saying the ifs, right? Just go right in. This is what it is, right? And then the other thing is, if you don't want to sound too bossy or sound too assertive, it's the way that you say it, your tone, that plays a huge part in the way that you sound, right?
Okay.
So you could say something like, actually, I don't like that, right? That's one way to say it. Or you can say, I understand what you're saying, but this is what I think would work better, right? So your words and tonality, both these things make a huge difference. And I think just the biggest thing is I want women to start saying, you know what I think, or can I say this, or according, like, stop with that. Just go in and say, this is how it is. I understand. Or if it was up to me, this is what I would do, right? And don't use your, like, when it comes to tonality, keep it neutral. Like, you don't have to be too loud and don't be too soft either. Increase that volume just a little bit so that you're heard and that you sound confident in what you're saying. But I think where people go wrong a little bit and that others think, oh no, she's bossy. First of all, I feel like women, just because you speak up, sometimes you're just considered bossy, right? If men do the same thing, it's like, oh, he's a leader. But if a woman does that thing, oh, she's bossy, right? But what I think we can do from our end, just watch that tone a little bit, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's so true to be firm but calm, right?
Mhm.
Firmly calm, like saying what it is, but not like engaging in argument, because it's not about argument. And if you know what you're talking about, that's probably true. So you don't need to argue. Everybody already knows that's true thing.
Mhm.
So you just stated something that maybe others didn't want to state.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and because
Go ahead, Emily.
because I work with women of color, this comes up a lot, right? So there was just an article in the Harvard Business Review that demonstrated that overwhelmingly there is that it's the stereotype of an angry Black woman is very prevalent in workplaces today. So, what I encourage women to do, so it's kind of like we know that there's a stereotype that's already present in the workplace, and many of the women who I coach, they feel like, so to speak, they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. Right. So, and as women of color, we're tone policed all of the time. So what I encourage women to do is to focus on the relationships as opposed to self-censoring, right? Because oftentimes there's absolutely nothing wrong with her delivery or with the content of what she's saying. It is that she is encountering a bias and a stereotype in the workplace, and that is a problem, right? And it shouldn't be all on our shoulders to break those kinds of things down, right? And it can't as individual women, right?
Yeah.
And so I often encourage women to be exactly who they are in the office, to 100% shine, right? And be firm and solid in her contributions to the space. And then also, develop relationships with people who are respectful and appropriate and who can really support you in your career, right?
That's great. And in terms of dealing, I've suffered from that myself, and I was surprised to learn that over 80% of the people suffered from imposter syndrome at some point in their career. And it's especially for people that are high achieving individuals, that they would think that they are less deserving of their own success, and that they may be a fraud, or like all those negative talks that creeps up on you and kind of holds you down from reaching your full potential. Is there any tips how to deal with that that we can share with the women and men out there? Because I don't think it's only for women, but
Well, it's all about building that self-confidence that Maria just had, a great talk. Yeah, it's digging in deep and finding your self-worth. It's actually a couple of layers to that, but feeling your self-worth, like connecting to yourself, that's what matters, because boosting confidence from outside is not the same as having it from inside, but it's a work. It can be discussed in 2 minutes, but this is the main point. Like once you believe in yourself and you have self-confidence, you will not be feeling as a fraud or anything like that.
I found like writing down like successes, small and big, having them like on paper rather than somewhere in your head, it kind of you have something that really shows that you can do this. If everybody is having confidence in you, it's time to believe in yourself too, and recognizing as soon as they creep up on you that okay, the symptoms, deal with them right away. Don't let it regurgitate inside your head.
Right.
That's a great point to finish for all the ladies, to have that confidence and to go shine.
Amy Cuddy, she's a psychologist. She used to be like teach, I think, at Harvard Medical Business School, and she had that book Presence. And she has the famous thing that before any presentation, do the power pose in for like a minute or so to get that those jitters out, and then you just go and
sometimes you just have to like trick your mind into think that you're confident. And I talk about that power pose a lot in my program too, where you just tell yourself or tell your body and act like you're confident, right? Your brain will follow along and your emotions will too. And it's silly, but it works. It really works. And that's more of like a psychological approach.
It does, yeah.
Right? So that's why like your mind is so powerful. It's so powerful. And you can like it's honestly, it's like insane because I've worked with so many people. So I've seen people come into my program and they have no confidence in themselves. And just the small things that I teach them, right? It takes them from like 0 to 10 so quickly, right? Because that's how powerful our brains are.
Yeah,
But one
awesome.
last tip, sorry, I have about, just how to thrive. Something that I've learned, and I tell everyone this as well, is just keep going, right? We give up too soon.
Exactly.
We have one failure and we're like, okay, this doesn't work. Second failure, oh, this doesn't work. Third failure, okay, this is not for me, and then you move on, right? You have to be consistent with whatever your goals are.
And I think
There's always a way.
especially with social media, there is glamorization of wins, and not many people talk about their losses or their failures. So we think that, oh, they've been winning over and over and over. The CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, he pitched the idea for Starbucks to 247 investors. 217 outright rejected him. And if he didn't keep going, we would not have, our Starbucks across the globe. So it could be that that one extra, try could be between you and success. So keep going, get your power poses on. If need be, deal with your internal hurdles first, and have allies and be part of a community, whether it's you're within your workplace, or reach out. For instance, Emily is making the community for women of color to support each other, because whether we like it or not, we're stronger together rather than being individualistic. And give. Giving really works. Like, you may not see it right away, but it does.
The more you give, the more it comes back.
Exactly. Any last words of wisdom to share with the ladies out there?
Yeah, I like what Irina said earlier. Keep shining, like just believe in your brilliance, keep shining, keep going. And you know what? Say what needs to be said.
Yeah,
that's important too. And that's how change happens. So you have to name the bias. You have to name the problematic aspects. It doesn't have to weigh you down, but it's important to name them. And once you do that, feel your power in doing so. Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Irina, any departing words from a life coach?
Yeah, that doesn't sound very encouraging.
No pressure.
But yeah, keep working on yourself. Don't give up on yourself. I don't even know how much I can say that, but it's all up to you. Nobody will be your biggest cheerleader if you're not gonna be. So it's up to you. You gotta work on yourself. If you want help, then we're all here for you, whatever you need.
Right. Yeah, we had, if you need help with whether it's life coaching, public speaking, women of color help, we put the contact details for Irina, Maria, and Emily in the comments. Feel free to reach out to them. If you need help for expanding your healthcare tech, you feel free to reach out to me. All our links are in the comments. It's been a pleasure sharing the stage with you, ladies. And thank you so much for sharing all you do with helping, people thrive one way or another. Appreciate you.
It's been wonderful.
So
Thank you, Nadia.
Have a wonderful day. Bye, Maria, Emily,
Bye,
Nadia.
Bye, Emily. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.